Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Mr. Robot Season 4 Episode 10, Gone. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Mr. Robot, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for Mr. Robot Season 4 Episode 10. If you haven't seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video. Otherwise, some things will be spoiled for you. So, this episode is not really what I was expecting. It was pretty much a strictly Dom and Darlene episode. But I liked it. I did really enjoy it. I do think this is a good episode. Now, of course, it's not one of the best episodes of the entire show, but not every episode has to be. And especially after the huge whopper of an episode we got last week, it's usually, commonplace that once you have that huge, such a big event episode, that the week after is kind of a sort of more slow-paced, character-based episodes to sort of, take a breath and relax. Now, I might actually argue that we had 3 intense episodes in a row, because we had that huge confrontation with Vera, which of course revealed all this information. Some people say that the episode the week after, Request Timeout, was another sort of fresh breath, but I disagree. Like, the Elliot storyline was, but the main storyline with Darlene and Dom, I would call it the main storyline, was not at all. In fact, I wouldn't even say that Elliot was so much of a take a breath. It was because that was kind of intense too, because he was investigating his background, finding the key, whatnot. And the Dom and Darlene stuff was super intense. And then last week's episode, of course, probably the most intense episode of the entire show. So I would argue we had 3 really intense episodes in a row. So it makes sense that this week is more of a slow character. And plus, a lot of people saw last week's episode as kind of a finale and are curious or puzzled why there's still 4 episodes left. And so this is kind of restarting the end game here where we get into the end game. And now I kind of predicted before that a lot of the storylines would come to a head before the season end, and then we would get a crescendo that would go off in a totally different direction. And that still may be the case, but this wasn't really taking us in that new direction. It was just sort of a slow-paced character storyline to deal basically with Dom and Darlene. Now, I will say, as I said, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a really good character story. I love the interplay between Dom and Darlene. I thought their relationship is something that they've sort of been building. So I think this is actually the perfect sort of end to that. Now, I know some people were hoping that Dom and Darlene would live happily ever after, and this episode actually really hinted and toyed with that. But I do kind of agree that maybe would have been a bit too cheesy for this show. That is maybe a more fitting ending that's more in line with the show. That they do both get happy endings, but not together. But they do have that moment. They have a couple of moments where they bond. I just think if you were going to tell me that Dom and Darlene were going to go off and live happily ever after together, I wouldn't buy it, because as much as these 2 characters have chemistry and they bond on certain things, they don't strike me as a kind of couple who would be able to, I don't know, I'd give them a month or at least a year. And they don't strike me that has the kind of couple who'd be able to stay together long term. But I think it's kind of implied that they may, keep in touch or whatever, or reunite. But yeah. I will say, though, that ending did irritate me a little bit. It seemed a bit tropish to me, how Darlene was going to get on the plane and Dom was going to go back to her life, and instead Dom was like, oh no, I have to go back and go on the plane, and Darlene's like, no, I can't go on the plane, and they just swapped and they missed each other. That annoyed me. I guess they were saying, because why didn't Dom just call Darlene or text her or something? I'm sure that they still have phones. But I guess the point is that Dom wasn't going back for Darlene, and Darlene wasn't staying for Dom. But they just had that moment, so you think they would be a bit concerned why, like, Darlene might be looking for Dom, or Dom, of course, knows that Darlene's not on the plane, yet she stays on the plane anyway. Which, again, I know the point is that she's not really, is not to be with Darlene, but to get away. And the point with Darlene is not to be with Dom, but to not run away and to stay and confront everything. And so this is probably the end of Dom in the show, because we see her going off to Budapest, so I don't know if I'd expect to see her again. But Darlene, she may still be in the story, because she's still here. Although, if this was the ending for her, I think I'd be happy with that too, if we'd never see Darlene for the rest of the show, but we still could. And I actually, if I was a betting man, I would bet that we would, but I don't think it's 100% guaranteed. And Dom, I would bet that we won't. And I think it would be really weird if we did. Unless as far as we know, we have no idea what's going to happen in these 3 next episodes. It could be a huge time jump. This whole season's taking place over like a week or something. It's possible the last episode or last couple episodes may have like a 10-year time jump or something. And if something like that happens, then okay, seeing Dom again I can buy. But other than that, I think that's it for her. Now, the actual episode itself, the Elliot going off kind of surprised me. As I said, the format of this episode surprised me because the promos can be misleading. We all know this, and I know this. But the promo did lead me to believe it was about Elliot, because they showed the part of the episode where Elliot says, I have to go to Washington Township. And I was like, oh, so this episode is going to be about Elliot going to Washington Township. Nope, it's not. That's next week. Ooh, spoilers for the promo, but duh. But anyway, whatever. But anyway, so that did surprise me that Ellie just took off and Darlene sort of parted ways with him. I think that was a nice touching moment. I think there were a lot of really nice touching moments. I think this was a really heartfelt, really good character story that was really good payoff of all the build off. Unlike those early episodes in the season, I still stand by that those didn't quite work, particularly the one with Tyrell. I'm sorry, but that one did not work at all, but this one really does. This one, I think, is true to the characters of Mr. Robot, and it's a great sort of, even if it's not the end, it's a great sort of conclusion, even if it's not the total end. And because, as I said, we could see Darlene and Elliot together again before this season's over, and I'd be fine with that. But it's still, if we weren't, I'd be happy with that ending. Although Darlene might have to be tied into this whole thing with the other personality, because Mr. Robot talking about how Darlene helped bring the other personality out. So maybe we will see her again so she can help with that. I don't know. Maybe they're saving that for the finale. That's why she's sort of aside for the moment. Could put it that way. Any which way it goes, I think it could work, and I'm totally on board with it. Now, as I said, there were some really nice moments, like the moment where Darlene explained where all the money went, because a lot of people were wondering. In fact, I got heard some speculation. Where's the money gone? I didn't even bother speculating, because I don't know. I'm sure they would explain it, and they did. In this episode, they showed that Darlene gave it to everybody. Now, you may think, like, Dom's a bit surprised that everybody got that much money, but if you think of, it's not just one billionaire or quadrillionaire, or however rich they are. It was like the top 1% of the 1%. They do own like a ridiculous amount of wealth. I think, yeah. So I don't know. I heard statistics that they own like more than another, like the top 1% own more than the other 99% combined. So it does kind of make sense that if you spread it out over millions of people, or even billions of people, it would still end up being a lot, because they owned a shitload. And I was kind of curious in the previous one, because in the previous one they mentioned the e-coin. They had a scene with Price talking to the U.S. Treasury guy or senator or whoever the hell he was about e-coin, and I was wondering the relevance of that. I was worried that the relevance would be that because of e-coin, the people with Deus Group would find a way to get their money back, but it actually turned out to be the exact opposite of that. That because of e-coin, they're able, the money that Darlene gave is impossible to be retracted. Of course, and all this again, I think it's good storytelling. I like it. It works for the show, but it is a bit fantastical, and I still stand by that. If we were to get some sort of form of time travel, I mean, some people were going off the rails, like, "Oh, it's going to turn into a total fantasy." I have better faith in the show. I don't think it will, but I think if they did introduce some time travel or parallel universe, something in a very subtle way, I think that sense of fantasticalism, if they did it the right way, would not be any worse than the scene and what they did, because it is a bit far-fetched. I mean, that Darlene was able to pull off this Robin Hood and take the top 1% to 1% and redistribute the wealth to the whole world. That is, we are entering fantasy world here. So, if done correctly, I don't see how, personally, time travel would be any worse. If done correctly, like, you can't go off the rails and have, like, the DeLorean speeding through time going dun, dun, dun. But if they did it in a very, very subtle way, I think it would fit right into the feel of the show. I know that's just me. I still am really hopeful. I hope to God that they do this, and I am so, the only problem I had with this week's episode is my impatience, because I really want to get to the following episode, because it looks like, again, slight spoilers for the promos, although you could probably figure this out, and this is just speculation on my part anyway, but I think we're going to finally get an answer. Or at least it's a possibility. At least they may delve a bit deeper into the project, which I was hoping for this week, but this week they completely put it aside. So that's the only thing that irritated me, but that's not the episode's fault. It's my impatience. So I'm not putting this on the show. The show is perfect, fine. This episode's great. It was just me being, I want more. Whatever. But that's actually a mark of a good show, that they're able to sort of stretch things out and go at a decent pace. So I actually give it a lot of praise for that, even though it annoyed me. But anyway, we got great, like the goodbye between Dom and Darlene, I thought was extremely touching. And of course, I talked about how Dom went on the plane, but of course, it's mentioned throughout this episode how she can't sleep. And we see her just sleeping like a baby on the plane, so it's implying that she's finally getting over her problems. And it's kind of implying the same thing for Darlene, because she had her own sort of issues and wanting to run away. But Dom was telling her that going to Budapest was Cisco's dream, not hers. And so it seems like she's going to finally grow up, as Dom says. So they're both sort of, I mean, as much as that ending did annoy me, because I hate those serendipity things like that where they just pass each other and trade places, it does make a narrative sense that, and it is kind of interesting in that sort of way that they're opposites of what their initial reactions were to do is actually what's best for them, that they sort of trade places like that. Although, logically, again, why don't they text each other and see what's going on? But whatever. Thematically, it does work. And I guess that's the more important thing. Now I got to talk about Leon. I called it earlier in the season when he appeared and he said he was a gun for hire. I knew that he was going to appear again. I knew, because that's obvious. The only reason to mention that, because it said, maybe they just mentioned that so Leon could sell drugs to Elliot. No, I knew there was more to it. To me, it was a very obvious plot device to make it so that Leon could work for Elliot and Darlene. And I think it is a tad bit contrived. I don't really think you could actually leave the Dark Army that easily. Like, it would be that simple to just walk away. And he totally playing for the side that's actually working against the Dark Army. So it's not like he's just working for someone else. He's specifically working against the Dark Army. So I don't know. And plus, I part of me didn't trust Leon the whole time. I was expecting Leon to betray Darlene, but I'm very glad they didn't go in that way. I think that way kind of would have ruined it. And I think the simple answer is that people like Leon. And he's a great character, and so they want to associate him as on Elliot's side. Like when in the prison, he was on Elliot's side. He helped protect him from the white supremacists, and even at the season 2 finale or season 3 finale, sorry, even then he saved Elliot and shot Grant and the other dudes. So we always like to see him on Elliot's side. So they're going to put him on Elliot's side, regardless if it actually makes sense for the story. But whatever. It's not a big deal. I don't really care because I like Leon too. I think he's a great character as well. So be it. I'll go with them for this one. The Irving scene was fucking amazing. I love the Irving scene. And this whole season, I don't know if you've seen videos I did with my brother and stuff like that. We were complaining, it sucks that Irving's not here, but I kind of, accepted it that he's not going to be in this season and moved on with my life. But I was thinking maybe we might get an Irving cameo, and I'm so glad we did. And plus, that was just so true to his character. That was such the perfect scene that he's standing by his, because of course his book was, foreshadowed throughout season 3. Now he's just standing by the stand. He's like, "Oh, hey Dom, how are you?" And I love Dom's reaction. She's just like terrified of him. And of course, and why shouldn't she be? She's like, "You're gonna fucking kill me." And I love how the first thing she says to him is, "Please don't kill us," or "Please don't hurt us." And he's like, "What? Hurt you? Pfft. Why would I do that?" And that's such an Irving thing to say. Like the whole way he acted. Now, I thought that maybe he had left the Dark Army because it implied at the end of season 3 he was going on a sabbatical or whatever, and obviously he did do something because he finished his book. But he does directly imply that he is still involved with the Dark Army, but that the Dark Army don't care. And of course, this is the way to get that information across to Dom and Darlene. And again, I was a bit not trusting Irving. What if Irving was lying? In fact, I kind of half expected, at the end of the episode where Darlene gets off the plane and she goes in the bathroom, she's having a panic attack. I half expected, and this lady comes up to Darlene and is like, "Oh, are you okay?" I half expected the lady to pull out a gun and shoot Darlene. Again, I'm glad that didn't happen. I think that would be a really bad way to kill this character. And then, of course, it would imply that the lady's involved with the Dark Army and be like, Irving is lying. I think it works better that Irving was telling the truth. But, I don't know. He's not a very trustworthy character, so it did make me have my doubts. But I'm glad that they go the way that they did. I think it works better for the story that he was being completely honest, that the Dark Army just don't give a shit about them. And, of course, this is foreshadowing, sort of implying, they have better things to worry about. They've gone off, and I think one could, and I'm one, so I will, sort of infer from this that this, again, has to do with White Rose's project. That the Dark Army are sort of more focusing on that, and I still believe the project has something to do with either resetting the timeline or going into a parallel universe or something of that nature. Not necessarily time travel. I don't think the thing's going to be about White Rose getting in a time machine and going back to the year 1984. I think it has more to do with either changing the timeline so we get a reset and things don't happen. And to be honest, that wouldn't seem so out of place to me after we got the scene where redistribute all the wealth to everyone, because it wouldn't. That's very fantastical, and it wouldn't be any more fantastical to me if they found some way to erase that. But then again, erasing the whole events of the entire series would be a very shitty way to end the show. So I really doubt that they're going to do that, and I really don't want them to, and I have faith that they won't. So it's all good. But if it has something to do with at least White Rose attempting to do that, or maybe pulling it off in some sort of way, or we get a glimpse into a parallel universe, or something like that, I'm actually hoping for that. I hope, to me, and I said this before, the worst case scenario is if White Rose is crazy in her project, that means nothing. Because to me, the reason why I think that would be the worst case scenario is because I think that directly contradicts and to make a lot of things meaningless and pointless, and not, it would lose its power to me, would lose its meaning. That doesn't mean it has to be resetting the timeline, or it has to be a parallel universe. Could be something that's not fantastical, that's more in the realm of reality, as long as it's not just that White Rose is crazy and it means nothing. That to me would be the worst case scenario. Still my opinion, but I don't know. We'll have to see what's going on. But I'm not done talking about Irving, though. I got on the sidetrack there because there was, I don't know. I don't have much to say about Irving other than just how awesome that was, and how he was so just casual about it, where the greatest line I gotta talk about was when Dom said, when Santiago, betrayed you, killed him with an axe, and he's like, yeah, that was fun. Like, oh my god, it's so twisted and fucked up in such an Irving way, and it's funny that, and it still seems like he's aware of what the Dark Army's up to, but he's not actively involved because he's on his book tour. So he doesn't really care about the project or setting it up or anyway. So anyway, let me give my rating for this episode first. Then I'm going to talk about the promo for those who are like super sensitive and don't watch the promo and consider it spoilers, which I personally think is ridiculous, but whatever. If you're that way, I will save it to the end so you can get out of here before I start talking about it. Although I did hint at it earlier, but I'm going to delve really deep into it. But first, let me give my rating for Gone out of 10, and I'm actually going to give this episode a 9. Excellent. I was thinking 8, but then the more I thought about how awesome Irving was and how great some of the moments were between Dom and Darlene, and the goodbye between Darlene and Elliot, and how the Leon dialogue. It was always great seeing Leon. So even though this episode wasn't like a powerhouse like last week's, it's the perfect kind of taking a breath character story we could possibly get, especially at this stage, and it does really help sort of conclude, even though if they come back, but it still helps conclude the storyline of Darlene and Dom, who've been two important characters throughout the show, and we could of course get cameos from other characters like Leon and Irving, which were so damn good. So I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna give this a 9. Excellent. I thought it was a really good episode. I do think it was much better than some of the ones we got earlier in the season. And, those who watched my channel from the earlier episodes, and they were very disagreed with me so heavily because I didn't like the earlier episodes as much. But I think the season is going to end on a huge high note. I'm going to say the second half of the season is probably going to be a pure gold. We still got 3 episodes left, but I'm very confident that those 3 episodes will keep up, because so far the second half of the season's just been perfect. But anyway, now let me get into the promo. So if you don't want to, while you haven't watched the promo, you consider it spoilers for the next episode, which really it isn't because they air it during this episode, so really it should count as promo. But whatever. If you do consider that, get out of here. I'm going to talk about the promo for next week's episode in more detail. So, White Rose is still alive. That is kind of a spoiler. So that is why I'm sort of saving it. But White Rose is still alive, which is, it was always in the realm of possibility. I don't think it's, oh my god, it's totally different than what I expected. Because, it wouldn't surprise me if she did die or get arrested, but I'm not too shocked that she didn't. In fact, they showed us a clip from the promo next week's episode that we actually saw in the trailer for the entire season of White Rose talking to Elliot. Now, I was confused if maybe last week's episode when she's talking on the phone to Elliot, that maybe that's what we got in the trailer, because it's been a while since I've seen the trailer. But after I saw the clip in this promo, I was like, no, it was this. So we hadn't gotten that yet. So that was sort of a clue that we still get that White Rose is still going to be around, and it does really look. Now again, I talked about the promo for this week's episode that we got last week and how it was deceiving, because I thought it was going to be about Elliot going back to Washington Township. Now, this promo looks like we might finally get some damn answers on the project, but again, it could be deceiving. But even if we don't give full answers, I think it's definitely going to explore it more. Even if it sort of drags it out and saves the big explanation, a big reveal till next week or the week after. But I'm not going to rule out the possibility that they could answer everything. Because I actually think that might be good, especially if it's like a time manipulation or something, because then that episode could explain it and reveal it, and the following two could explore it. That's actually what I would prefer. I prefer that they finally reveal what the hell is going on next week, and then the two episodes we have after will explore it. I think, to me, that's the best case scenario, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. Anyway, that is it for my review of Mr. Robot Season 4, episode 10? I think I lose track. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Of course, I will be back next week. Talk about next week's episode, and boy, I'm so excited. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Check out my channel. Has to do many more videos and shows like Lost, Star Trek, The Expanse, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.